Hello and welcome to one of Moxie's guides. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. I'm a small Twitch streamer with fewer than 100 followers at the time of this recording. I create these guides to assist fellow streamers with their inquiries, offering detailed explanations and seamless instructions to ensure you don't have to pause or rewind every few seconds if you aren't already familiar with the matter. Please note that my advice is based on personal experiences and research and may not always apply to every situation. Technology and streaming platforms are constantly evolving, so methods and settings discussed here may change over time. If you have questions, join our 18+ Discord community or leave a comment. Let's get started. And with that out of the way, let's get right to it. If you have not yet created your VRM files, then please check the link in the description. While I briefly intended to make my own video, truth is Ritual Neo, a fellow streamer and amazing bean, recently recorded a video that demonstrates every step of the process, and he's doing such a good job. If I would make a video, I would just plagiarize him, and I think we already have enough of that on YouTube. So please check the video in the description and send him my love. But what do you do once you have your VRM? And in this case, I created a few. Why? I'll show you later. As you can see, I also installed VSeeFace and VTuber Plus. So let's jump right into it. As a first step, what do you need to run VSeeFace and VTuber Plus? VSeeFace can be downloaded for free. There are also some alternatives, however, to make it simple, I'm not going to go into them in this case. VSeeFace uses your webcam and available other devices, namely a hand tracker or an iPhone, to also track your hands, your face, your lips, your eyes, whatever it can track. Once you start VSeeFace for the first time, make sure you load your avatar by going into the correct folder. And in this case, I called mine neutral. And also make sure you select the correct camera. You don't need a good camera for VSeeFace. However, I suggest a full HD camera that runs at 60 FPS, just to make sure that you have a good and reliable image quality. Usually cameras that by default run at a lower FPS also have a bit less of a quality, and that can cause shivering or spasming of your character when VSeeFace doesn't know exactly where you are. So higher quality definitely wins. In this case, this is a 4K camera that is absolutely unnecessary. You can see I don't even run it in 4K, nor do I run it in 60 FPS, because we don't need perfectly smooth movement. The rest is all calculated. Last but not least, the tracking quality. I usually suggest to set it to the highest quality. If this causes an issue, you can always lower it, but this will make sure that when you blink or when you wink, your character does as well, making it look a little bit more realistic and allowing you, for example, to close your eyes if you want to do so. I mean, let's face it, with the games we play now and then we do. Last but not least, it also needs to know which microphone you use, because this will allow it to listen to your voice and help with the lip syncing. Now, once we open this, we notice this is not the avatar I picked. Let's try this again, and this time we actually select the avatar. Doesn't help if I only add it and not select it. Now, let's talk about the basic tracking settings and the hardware. You can see that things don't look too bad. If I turn my head, things work. But not everything is on yet. You can also see that if I would hold my head straight right now, I would actually look slightly tilted. That is because whenever VSeeFace starts, it resets your position into a neutral position based on where you currently are. If you don't want this, and this is something that we should definitely set a hotkey for. Then click on Reset Position, and regardless of what position you are currently in, it will recenter you. You can also enable mirror motion. That makes sure that it feels more like a webcam than a video camera. So if you look to the left, your character looks to the left and vice versa. Last but not least, if you have a leap motion, then you can also enable this. This will make sure that whenever you use hands, they also track. But we're going to go into a leap motion in detail in a little bit. Let's first talk about the default settings in here. You can see default sliders here for the movement range and the movement smoothing. In most cases, you want to leave the movement range low enough that it looks natural when you move your body, so you're not completely frozen in place. But you also don't want to usually dance all over the screen. As with all settings in here, please play around with them. Based on your hardware and setup, based on your avatar, based on, the weakliness of your features, things might be different. Also be careful if you push the motion smoothing too high, it will start to lag, and if you have it too little, then you can see, for example, here, how my ears become unstable because my head always moves a little when I talk. So here you just gotta find the right settings for your style and your character. Once we've done that, let's go through the remaining settings. We're gonna skip leap motion for now. We're also gonna skip effect and light. The reason for that is, yes, these are nice effects. You can cause special effects on your character or silly things, but the truth is we're not going to use VSeeFace as our input in OBS. So anything we set here is completely pointless. Same for the light. It doesn't matter whether I push the ambient up to have less shadow or not. We're going to turn all of this off. The only one you want to look here is the expression settings, though we're also going to go into detail in that later when we set up the hotkeys. But what you do here is you can enable or disable your specific blend shapes. Say if I want my sorrow blend shape, then I would have to do a Ctrl-Shift F5, joy, and so on. Of course, no one wants to press Ctrl-Shift-F to trigger these, but these are nice keys out of the way, so we're going to leave that and set better hotkeys to use them later. And that is when we get to semi. If you have very complicated blend shapes, you might want to raise the transition time. So for example, if I take my mlem, if it was a bigger tongue, I might want to do the animation slower, but for me, all of these fit pretty well. Last but not least, let's talk about general settings. If you didn't turn the wink support on, or you just like the auto blinking, then you can turn that on. That will just make your character blink every few seconds. And also turn the auto blink off. So if I now close my eyes, it wouldn't work anymore. Where, if I have the wink support and I close my eyes, it works very well to look tired or frustrated when necessary. You can also turn various other features on, for example, the fake gaze, which controls your eyes to look at essentially where your head looks instead of at the camera. Though you can see the difference is always in the smallest details. If you have issues with vertical head movement, you may find this in here. and so on. Nothing here should surprise you, but it's always useful to play around with. One detail you can also enable here that I still see done rather often is to use automatic expressions. I was never able to really work with them. I never liked them. Essentially means if you smile or if you close your eyes or you look angry, then it will use your blend shapes. Unfortunately, it's a bit sensitive, so I highly prefer having full control over that myself. Last but not least, even if it's irrelevant, you can turn these effects off, because what we're gonna do once we're done is we're actually gonna turn the avatar off. This option you find down here. We're only gonna do that once we're done. And this will allow you to save the performance of rendering your avatar in here if you don't use it anyway. And we don't. Now, last but not least, if we go through the rest of the options, if you use iFacial Mocap, Face Mocap 3D, or VTube Studio, all three of which are iPhone applications, then you can enable the iPhone or Arc It tracker. This works in combination with your iPhone and uses your iPhone's depth and face cam to provide a better facial movement. So you'll often see that people who have that simply have a more smooth movement. As you can see, I just noticed that if I now wink, my head moves. So in that case, we want to move the smoothing up a little, or we can... Let's see. Let's fix the head a little. Shoulder stiffness a little, neck stiffness a little. There we go. Just keep blinking until things move right. Also, if you have issues, make sure you have a good light. If you sit in a dark room, as I currently do, it will always be less sensitive than it is if your face is well lit. Same for the webcam. Make sure it's in front of you and faces your head whenever possible, because if it is on the side or anything, it will always be less sensitive. So, with that out of the way, let's talk about the last setting in here, leap motion. What is a leap motion? Let's open the controller. Leap motion is an infrared camera that senses your hands and allows you to add hand tracking to your setup. Let's just gotta open. Oh, helps if we open the right program. So what you see here is the control window. When you start leap motion, you just have to select where your leap motion is. Desktop means it's essentially in front of me. Head mounted speaks for itself. This is most commonly if you mount it in an Index, Vive, or other VR headset. In my case, it's at a screen top. That means it looks down and can see my hands underneath. So as I now hold my hands in front of my screen, you can see that my leap motion recognizes them. With that out of the way, I can close the leap motion and enable it in here. And you can now see that I have full hand tracking. Do things work the way they should? No. Why would they? So let's go into settings and leap motion. Because first things first, we have to change the same setting here. Since it's screen mounted, we do that first. Now let's make sure the right hand is the one I see as the right. If not, we can mirror it. Then place the hands flat on the ground. And what we do now is, you can see that this is where my mouse is. We want to put the leap motion that is displayed by this item here in the position of where it roughly is on our desk. So feel free to use these sliders to get it right there. And as you place this, always have an eye on, for example, texture issues. One thing you can see is if I go back and down a little, for example, that my texture of the fur underneath clips through here. If that is the case, just find the right spot, or you might also have to adjust your model if that happens. Here we go. This is about reflecting my current position. I want to do specific things. So for example, I want to be able to reach my mouth because I eat out of my hand in VTuber Plus. And other than that, I just want to be able to wave and, be able to say hi. So this position looks good for now. We can always adjust it later. With VSeeFace set up, we only have to do one more thing, and that is we have to activate the throughput. By enabling this, we now send our information, our tracking information, through an open protocol on the local host. Now I can hide the avatar and minimize VSeeFace. So let's talk about VTuber Plus. VTuber Plus is not for free, but A, it only costs $5, and B, it is one of the most useful and most engaging tools that you will have. It will become a lot more useful once you have access to an affiliate, because you can control your redeems therein. But even as a non-affiliate, you can set up text commands and let your audience, remind you, tease you, or play with you. So let's log onto Twitch, and that one I'm not gonna share. And there we go. Once we have logged in, you're first greeted with a completely black screen. As a very first step, you can see the options in the top. We want to import a VRM/VSF. We're going to use the same one as before. And you can see this will immediately hook into the protocol and give me exactly the same details, appearance, position, winkability, and everything I need that VSeeFace did. However, it also gives me a lot more. By default, you'll see that not everything looks correct. That is why we always have to adjust. But it works. And all of these you can trigger to specific text or redemption events, or just trigger yourself. So let's get to it. Let's talk about the options in here. Of course, we want to auto log in and auto reconnect. Other than that, there is not much we need to change here. I generally suggest to hide UI on focus loss, because otherwise your audience is going to see all of this text, and that is unnecessary. However, I'm going to leave this off as long as we're still setting things up. If you experience any issues receiving this movement data, make sure it is enabled in VSeeFace and check your information here. I also generally suggest to put this at the same resolution every time. This will make your import easier in OBS. By default, I would actually suggest to make it full screen or maximize it, just so you always have the same input. Okay, let's look at what else we have. You have a lot of options here. For example, you can review your blend shapes. I am not going to go into detail in all of these, including stuff like editing the items, adding items. There is a wonderful Discord for VTuber Plus that not only has a lot of detailed instructions if you want to add custom items, but also includes custom items, effects, anything you can look for. So go check them out. Amazing Discord. One detail I do like enabling in here is in the light option, because you can enable the screen ambient. If I set this to monitor 1, actually let me set this to a different monitor so I can demonstrate this. It is now on my third monitor. I'm just gonna open something that is nice and bright. That is not it. Yeah, let's try this. So you can see I'm currently surfing YouTube. Let's put the exposure up a little, and it's not working as well as I was hoping. But what you can see in here is that when you set the screen ambient up, that the color you are lit with will be based on whatever game you play. I'm not good at demonstrating this, but give it a test. It is much easier to see yourself than have someone demonstrate it. But yeah, this just makes your character look a bit more alive, and it makes it look like you are actually in front of the screen. Now you see, my character is a bit off. Let's reset the position to make sure that works. And one little troubleshooting tip: if you ever lose hand tracking, the easiest is always to just show your pops. If you show your pops, it always goes back active. I'm also going to set the blink sensitivity down a bit, because I find myself closing my eyes a bit too often. You can also do the same for the mouth. For example, if you always have an open mouth when you don't talk, then make sure your mouth sensitivity is correct. And of course, anything you want to play around with here for special effects, go ahead. Nothing to lose. Give it a try. But if I would go into all of these, I don't think we would get done today. So let's look into the important one. And that would be the rewards. I'm going to go ahead and delete the existing rewards, because I'm going to start from scratch to show you exactly what I'm going to do. And for that, we need one more thing. And that is, go to your own channel, click on chat, then down here on chat settings, and pop out chat. This will allow me to have a quick handy chat so I can test, for example, my redemptions. Now, let's set up the very first, and a good test in most cases, because everyone loves it, is our rainbow. When you create a reward, you just select what happens up here. So for example, I could change my avatar, I could grayscale or pixelate, I could throw things at me. In this case, I just want the rainbow. We're gonna also call this rainbow text, so I know this is a text redeem. The command I want to use is !rainbow. Any text command needs to be started with the exclamation mark. Any redeem, so anything in here requires the exact phrasing you have in here. So we're also going to set a high trade up to test this. So rainbow is a chat command and resets after 30 seconds. You can see it's very simple. I can also select on whether this happens if someone subscribes, follows, rates, or hosts. Yes, hosts aren't a thing anymore, but it's still in here. And for chat comments, you can also limit if you don't want everyone to be able to do it. With this edit, I can just click on add and we have it in here. If you make a mistake and you want to edit it, just click on here. And once you're done, on the little check mark here, because if you click on the add, you're just going to add a copy. But we have a rainbow. Let's also get our hydrate reminder. In this case, the bucket. And this one only needs hydrate. It's not a chat command. It can't reset because the bucket just disappears by itself. And add. So let's see if both worked. First, we're going to test the hydrate. Perfect. And then we're going to test our chat command. You see, nothing easier than that. We already have one redeem and one chat command. And yeah, you can see that I still have issues with blinking, especially every time I move my head. So back to the settings. That's life. Also, like I said, I did not turn my room lights on, so I don't have the best tracking. That's life too. That's why I don't make professional guides. I just make follow along and understand how things work guides. So, what other rewards can you do and what can you do with them? Let's take an example. Let's take throw. You see that by default we have a few default items. You can add your own, as I said. Just check their Discord. There are a lot of really good guides on how to make items that would go a little bit far. But let's do a new redeem. We'll just call it test. Because I want to see what happens if I'm hit by 50 items. Also, you see a little field here called damage. What damage does is explained down here. Because your avatar actually has health points. You have 100. If it's to 0, you get hit. You knock out. So in this case, we're going to put each ball to 1 damage. And add this command. Now let's see what happens when we do a test. Oh, nothing. And why? I hope someone was screaming because I always forget to click the is chat command. There you have your first 50 items. And what happens when I'm hit by another 50? I regenerated too much health in between, so let's just raise the damage, save it, and do it again. You can see once the 100 health are gone, you just start to ragdoll. Of course, you can change these settings in here. You can change how much HP you recover, how long it takes you to get back up, if your health bar is shown. Let's lower the resistance a little and see what happens now. So now you can also see my health bar. And once it happens, I would be a bit more reluctant to get back up, just chilling down here. Of course, you can do this with anything that hits you. Say if you drop stuff on your head, always make sure to keep an eye on the damage you can cause. Maybe just a general good question. The last one I'm gonna set up is the head pad, because everyone needs a head pad. And I'm also just gonna do a command for this. Of course, if you have the redeems, set them up in Twitch and use them. But since I always assume a lot of people who watch these tutorials might not be affiliates yet, we're gonna use this. For a head pad, of course, it needs to reset, otherwise I'm being head padded at infinity. So now let's see where the head pad is. Is it too large, too small, too animated? Where was this? This was also an avatar, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, here we go. Then you can go in here, even if this is a bit difficult to see. But this will allow you to set up exactly where everything should happen. Say, do you like a very slow head pad? On a smaller hand, a bit further down. Or do you like it bigger and faster? You can change everything in here. Of course, as always, this is something you just have to play with. You can also change your head collider size here. This should essentially cover your head shape, because it creates the physical boundaries or the hitbox around you. So if something lands on your head, it doesn't clip through you. So for example, if I would put this a little bit too low, and I would now drop a bucket on my head, then you would see my ears and horns through it. So we want the head collider to do a good job at covering it, but not too much, or it looks like things are floating. Since this is now part of my hitbox, even though it's not part of my head. The mouth collider settings are to eat. This is weirdly bright. Usually this is a lot more visible, but it might be because of the recording right now. And the same for the chest collider. Once again, you essentially just want to shape your hitbox. So you can see my mouth shape is in a good spot. That's all I want. And why do we need a mouth shape, you ask? Because you can also summon food. Of course, with redemptions. And to eat this food, fair warning, only do this if you have hand trackers. If you summon food and you don't have hand trackers, well, congrats, you now have food stuck to your hand. But you just bring it to your mouth. Now let's test if we can do that. Nope, my hand actually loses tracking before it reaches it. So you can see if I reach forward, at this point I'm just too far away from the camera and it loses connection. So if that is the case, I'm actually gonna move this off the screen. Let's position it a bit back. Yeah, nom nom, health recovered. Once again, these are settings that you need to play around with until they suit you. It's not going to be easy. This is probably a place that you will spend time in again and again after every stream, because you notice that something wasn't perfect. Also, one detail, if you accidentally keep moving your character, make sure you click on camera lock. Then you can't. You can also keep various camera positions. You see the shortcuts down here. Control, Shift, 129 will give you new camera positions. So for example, let's say I want one where I face slightly sideways because I'm standing at a counter. Then I can easily switch between these two using the hotkey. Of course, once again, we are gonna create better hotkeys. But for now, this works perfectly. I don't think I have to go into the controls in detail, but you can see it in the left mouse button moves, the camera rotation. The middle mouse button moves your character, your mouse wheel scrolls, and if you use Alt, then you actually change the position of the camera itself. But this is all we need to talk about VTuber Plus and how to set it up. If you have any issues with it, if you aren't quite sure, are my settings correct, and you want to give us a test run, please feel free, let us know. Hop in our Discord, and we would be happy to work with you, assist you, and take a look at it. But until then, I will be back in the next guide where we talk about putting all of this into OBS and starting to actually get our first stream set up. That will probably be a rather long and arduous task, because we need everything from transitions to sounds. But I look forward to it. And after that, we will get into Semi. If you've never dealt with Semi, you're really gonna enjoy that. Semi is a scripting tool, automation tool, scripting language to automate anything stream related. Control your avatar, your camera position, your OBS, your transitions, your chat, everything. And you know what? It's for free. Because the streamer community is filled with so many awesome beings that help each other, that programs like this make our life. So I can't thank all the creators out there enough for providing us these programs, for helping us, and someone wrote the guides that made me learn all these things so I can help you. So thank you. I would show you a heart, but unfortunately hand trackers only go so far. So imagine how I'm showing you a heart here, eventually. But with that, this is the end for this guide. My name is Moxie, and like I said, if you want to know more, check out our 18+ Discord below, or post a comment. See you in the next guide. Bye bye!